2025. There's been a lot going on both in the visible news and under the surface. As we reported last week, Donald Trump did a 180-degree turn in all sorts of directions from before the helicopter crash compared to afterwards. And he has not appeared in public with Melania ever since. And it is also clear that we barely avoided a plot to publicly execute a so-called Trump at the Super Bowl to provoke the American people into a frenzy to attack Iran. That was stopped because we announced their plans in advance. So that's very good. And now it looks like, as I said at the time, the only person with the technical capability to do this attack on the helicopter would have been Elon Musk and the military dark hats behind him. And so there's been a white hat counterattack. Now, I want you to watch these 3 videos, and then I'll explain why it looks like Elon Musk has also now been replaced.
As you can see, I'm not just MAGA, I'm dark, gothic MAGA.
What kind of fraud are you expecting to see, or do you see right now in U.S. Treasuries?
I think you mean the Treasury Department as opposed to Treasury bills, or
you also referenced Treasuries on Air Force One the other night.
Go ahead. Well, as I mentioned earlier, really the first order of business is to make sure we're actually collecting. Sorry for this, although my son might enjoy this, but he's sticking his fingers in my ears and stuff. It's been hard to hear sometimes. Hey, stop that. The stuff we're doing with them was.
The president said the other day that you might look at treasuries. Could you explain that a little bit? What kind of fraud, and that question goes to both of you, what kind of fraud are you expecting to see, or do you see right now in U.S. treasuries?
I think you mean the Treasury Department as opposed to Treasury bills, or
you also referenced Treasuries on Air Force One the other night.
Democracy. This may seem like, well, to restore democracy. This may seem like, well, aren't we in a democracy? To restore democracy. To restore democracy.
You heard that too, right? You're not the president, you need to go away. I'll play the clip a second time. Just, you watch and tell me if that's what he said.
To restore democracy. To restore democracy. From one year to the next are the same, and their prices from one year to the next are the same. From one year to the next are the same, and they're.
That one's clear as day. He says, I want you to shut your fucking mouth.
From one year to the next are the same, and they're.
I wasn't even going to post on this, and then I saw some clips that changed my mind, and I'll show you those in a moment. But first, Elon Musk yesterday, along with his son, Little X, held a press conference in the Oval Office to discuss what Doge is doing, all while Donald Trump watched on silently from his cuck chair. And in the aftermath, one of Elon's fanboys shared this tweet that Elon reposted. It says, history repeats itself, and it shows 2 images. The first image is a pretty iconic image of JFK Jr. playing underneath his dad's desk while he worked in the Oval Office. And the second is Little X seemingly bored out of his mind, crawling around on the floor while Donald Trump pontificates about what he liked watching from said cuck chair. But I can point out at least one glaring difference between these 2 situations. JFK Jr., as I recall, never had criticisms of his father while the press was there. Little X, on the other hand, has a lot to say, and there was a hot mic that caught some of it. So first is this little gem.
To restore democracy. This may seem like, well.
You heard that too, right? You're not the president, you need to go away. I'll play the clip a second time. Just, you watch and tell me if that's what he said.
To restore democracy. This may seem like.
That's what he said, but I'll go one better, because he also said this.
The prices from one year to the next are the same, and the mortgage, all
That one's clear as day. He says, I want you to shut your fucking mouth up. And there's already people who are like, out of the mouth of babes. But let me just put this out there for your consideration. A child this young doesn't have this profound moment where he like tells off Trump. He just repeats things he's heard. So if he says you're not really the president, chances are someone has said that around him and he's repeating it. When he says, I want you to shut your fucking mouth up, he's either heard someone say that to someone else or someone has said that to him and he's repeating it. Either scenario is pretty disturbing. But perhaps the question we should be asking is the same one that Shea Jordan Smith asked on Twitter, which is, why the fuck is Elon Musk doing press briefings in the White House from the Oval Office? He is not an elected official. Why is he holding court in the Oval Office? Nothing about this is normal or good.
from one year to the next are the same, and they're
All right, today we're going to look at apples, apple seeds, and apricot seeds and how they can cure you of cancer. Now, it's interesting because apricot seeds and apple seeds, they have cyanide in them, but also B17, a vitamin. So what happens is the cancer cell says, hey, we would like to be taking part of that B17, and then they take that in, and then when that cancer cell takes the B17 in, it takes the cyanide in also, and the cyanide kills the cancer cell. Pretty cool. G. Edward Griffith wrote a book.
from one year to the next are the same, and they're
All right, today we're going to look at apples, apple seeds, and apricot seeds and how they can cure you of cancer. Now, it's interesting because apricot seeds
from one year to the next are the same, and they're
I wasn't even going to post on this, and then I saw some clips that changed my mind, and I'll show you those in a moment.
from one year to the next are the same.
Okay, so in the first video, you see Musk saying he wants a Gothic dark MAGA, okay? And what he was talking about, of course, is his plan to, turn X, his platform X, into a mark of the beast system together with Neuralink. In other words, have everyone microchipped and tied to their digital payments on the X platform. This was his long-term goal. He said so in various different ways. Now, suddenly, is a very different Elon Musk. Now, you see his kid playing with what's now it was a rubber mask. So it's pretty clear the kid knows that this is a man in a mask, and he's pulling at it. So, and he looks very different from the previous versions of Musk. So clearly, there's been a counterattack against Elon Musk, and now I think it's better to call him Elon Mask. And the battle is still going on, but it's the new Musk is now saying all the sort of things that we're expecting to hear, such as he's going to audit the Federal Reserve Board and abolish income taxes, and they're talking. And Ron Paul's saying, of course, we need to abolish the Federal Reserve Board. And he's also talking about abolishing land taxes. So, in other words, they are talking about once again, giving the U.S. government the power over money and taking it away from the satanic cabal. However, I also noticed the Mar-a-Lago plan for a Chapter 11 bankruptcy of United States Corporation. What they're saying is they want their $31 trillion in external debt restructured so that it can be paid over 50 years. In other words, it's another version of the AMRO plan saying, please cut our debt in half so we can pay it. And they don't refer to the internal debt, which is, by some estimates, this is, unfunded liabilities and debt to American people, which is somewhere around over $200 trillion. But that's because if you nationalize the Fed, you can deal with that. That's an internal thing the American people can work out. But the external part involves reaching a deal with China. And I don't think China wants to leave the same people in charge because they have a very bad track record of, spreading bioweapons, starting infinite wars, you name it, So they want completely new management. And that's still going to be a debate that's going to come up ahead. Nonetheless, it's clear that there has been a fundamental change. I was amazed to see the White House press secretary saying they found $2.7 trillion in money was going who knows where. This is through Medicaid and Medicare. So that's enough right there to cover the government deficit if you just stop those payments to anonymous individuals. And this is basically what's been impoverishing the American people. So that's a very good thing I saw. And then it looks like Canada's the same. I mean, it's $109 billion slush fund managed by Trudeau to pay the globalists. And Canadians are spending close to half their income on taxes. Remember, until his father, Pierre Trudeau, betrayed Canadian people because he was being blackmailed with videos of him torturing a child to death, Canada produced its own money, and they were able to carry out all the functions of government without any debt or without any taxes. Canadians did not pay taxes at the time, and you didn't have to pay big money to go to university. So he put Canada under debt slavery. So what we're looking for here now is we're still waiting to see a jubilee and a complete end to all the debt slavery, and we haven't seen that yet. So the situation is still quite fluid, and also we're still seeing a fake Donald Trump repeating the 30-year-old mantra of Iran's about to get nukes, so we have to attack Iran first, and that is complete nonsense. Real military contacts I have know that Iran has nuclear weapons on hypersonic missiles, and there's been a high-level agreement for many decades between the top militaries of the world, including China, Russia, and the U.S., not to be fooled into starting all-out nuclear war. So this attempt to once again threaten Iran is going to go nowhere, and hopefully soon they will lose the ability to put a masked man in front of our screens and fool people into thinking that's the actual commander-in-chief, because this Iran threatening phony has no control over the military. They're not going to do that. Now, the other big news, of course, we're seeing is at the Munich Security Conference in Munich in Germany, where the Pete Hegseth has come out and basically shown a 180-degree turn on the whole Ukraine thing, and he's ignoring Europe. He refused to meet the German Chancellor Scholz, and they're now talking directly to Russia. So, and he's saying, Europe's going to have to take care of its own security because we got our hands full with China and East Asia, and this is a clear sign that they have decided to hand over control of security in Western Europe to Russia. And Colonel Douglas Macgregor has also said that, he supports the Eurasian security architecture promoted by Russia. So there's, it really does look like NATO. Well, we also had Trump or whoever, the white hat Trump, whoever's playing that part now, I don't know, but saying that Russia should join the G8 or the G7 again. So again, we're seeing an alliance between the United States military and the Russian military, and a fundamental change in policy in Eurasia. So, it's all for the better. So things are going in a good direction, but there's still some turbulence ahead. We still have them, these Zionists putting out their fake Trump threatening to kill everybody in Gaza. And, the U.S. military doesn't do genocide, and what they do is they arrest people trying to do genocide as war criminals. And that's what's going to happen to the mass murdering people still in Israel. They will be arrested. And there's no way they're going to escape justice. I guarantee you that. So overall, let me just make sure I didn't miss anything. Oh yeah, sorry, I did. I'm glad to note that RFK Jr. has been confirmed and Tulsi Gabbard have been confirmed in their posts. And it looks like Kash Patel is also going in. So that means that, no matter what they try to do with a fake warmongering Trump, there's going to be a real cleanup in the United States of the pharmaceutical industry, and the waste in the military the money laundering through the Ukraine is going to end, and all the mass bribery is going to end. So everything is returning to sanity, and we expect a lot more heavy-duty stuff. The final thing I wish to note is that the new Elon Musk or Musk still has to look at the $20 trillion or over $20 trillion missing from the Pentagon budget. And I've, over the years, asked about this, and it looks like it went to the Space Force. So let's see if we start getting real disclosure about what happened with the Space Force. Have they settled on other planets? Have they got, interstellar travel, all this kind of stuff? Hopefully we will be finding out. Keep watching, folks, because things are moving at a very fast pace. Okay, well, that's what I have to say for myself this week. Now I'd like to answer questions from readers and viewers.
Hi, Ben. We have our first question for today. Stu Peters reported on his show on the evening of February 13th that Anna Paulina Luna, the person leading the declassification of the Kennedys and King Files, was a stripper prior to getting into politics and has two names associated with her. Is this a sign that the deep state may have maneuvered her into this position to disrupt the declassification process?
I know that there are some still very powerful people who want to hide the fact that it was Israel and David Ben-Gurion and the Rothschilds who ordered the assassination of President Kennedy and his brother and a lot of other people. And they'll do everything they can. And the other thing, of course, is they're fighting tooth and nail to avoid declassification of the Epstein files. So there's a fight that's still going to continue along that front. But I think by now, despite their efforts to prevent official disclosure, most of us are aware of what has happened. Next question.
Hi, Ben. When you talk about two Trumps, you often cite height difference as a determining factor between the real and the fake. What about the usage of height increasing shoes? Couldn't this be a more logical explanation? Seeing Trump stand above Netanyahu doesn't prove he was killed the day before and had a sudden avatar or clone in his place that was taller. The other alternative is, what if Netanyahu wasn't the real Benjamin?
Well, I've heard that the real Benjamin Netanyahu is long gone. And if you look at different pictures, you can see that there are very different faces on different versions of Netanyahu. Now, the same with Trump. As you know, I showed, the mask technology is so good as you could get someone who's just as tall as a real Trump to put on a Trump mask, and you can fake it very well these days. So, they don't have to use the short, fat avatar from Mar-a-Lago anymore. They have other choices at this point. So it's all very confusing, which is why it's important to remember that Melania only appears with the real one. So keep an eye on that. Next question.
Hi, Ben. You mentioned earlier today you believe Elon has nefarious intentions. How do you feel about the people currently in Trump's cabinet, such as Gabbard, RFK, and also what about Vance?
I judge people by their words and their actions, and so far I have a very good view of RFK Jr., Vance, and Gabbard, and I think that they're leading a fundamental reform of a very, very damaged system, and I wish them the best, and they have my support until or unless they stop doing what they've been asked to do by the public. Next question.
Hi, Ben. Now that Donald Trump is in office, how long do you expect the Ukrainian war to last?
Well, as we just saw from the Munich conference, there is talks have begun with Russia over ending the war and letting Russia keep parts of the Ukraine. There's also Russian officials now speaking on the TASS official news agency saying that Ukraine was an artificial construct and it might be divided among various countries, including Romania, Poland, and Hungary. So clearly, it's going to end very soon. Next question.
Evan, we have our last question for today. You mentioned a week ago that the real Donald Trump may have been killed on the helicopter crash. I find it strange that Trump would fly on a helicopter and not Trump Force One. Do you still believe the real Trump has been taken out, or was this a mistake? There are a lot of people now that believe your sources are feeding you disinformation to your discredit.
What I know is that there was 180-degree turn in what Trump was doing and saying from before the helicopter crash and after the helicopter crash. And I've made as many inquiries with as many sources as possible. And the latest information I have is that a very important avatar of Trump used by the White Hats was killed, and that the Dark Hats were then able to temporarily place an imposter playing his role in the White House. But that the real commander-in-chief, Donald Trump, remains safe at Cheyenne Mountain base, and now the White Hats are apparently, putting in a new avatar to take the risky public role of Trump. So events will prove, but I don't just accept disinformation blindly. If I get information, I try to confirm it, and the confirmation for Trump was that there was a complete change in policy towards Netanyahu, towards Israel, towards Gaza, towards all sorts of things before the helicopter crash and after the helicopter crash. And I've been contacted by heads of state who confirmed that the Trump who appeared after the crash acted and talked very differently from the one before. And these are people who've personally spoken to both versions. So clear, I don't just accept anonymous intel sources blindly. I look for confirmation from many directions. Clearly, there's a very serious power struggle still underway, but to conclude, the latest information I have is that the real Donald Trump, commander-in-chief, is safe at Cheyenne Mountain, and that a new White Hat avatar is emerging to play his public role. And again, as I mentioned at my talk, it looks like they also dealt with Elon Musk and replaced him with someone. But we'll keep an eye on things. All right, thanks for tuning in, and I hope to see you again next week.
Back to Doge just for a second. Earlier, the subcommittee headed by Chairman Marjorie Taylor Greene, her and her staff discovered $2.7 trillion in improper payments to Medicare, Medicaid, overseas, to people who should not have gotten it. Some in this room might have missed that press conference. Can you elaborate on what the president is thinking at this point?
Well, again, that's another example. There's a very long list of the fraud, waste, and abuse that Doge is identifying on a daily basis. Elon Musk also talked about yesterday about Social Security payments that are going out the door for people who are no longer with us. Unfortunately, I would say that is certainly fraud. There's also a lot of contracts they've identified that, just as a hypothetical example, are $1 million, but only 500,000 went out the door. So where's the rest of that cash? And so that's the thing. Those are the things that Doge is working on every single day. And I would just remind everybody in this room, this is what President Trump campaigned on doing. He's delivering on a promise that 70.
All right, thanks for tuning in, and I hope to see you again next week.
Back to Doge just for a second. Earlier, the subcommittee headed by Chairman Marjorie Taylor Greene, her and her staff discovered $2.7 trillion in improper payments to Medicare, Medicaid, overseas, to people who should not have gotten it. Some in this room might have missed that press conference. Can you elaborate on what the president is thinking at this point?
Well, again, that's another example. There's a very long list of the fraud, waste, and abuse that Doge is identifying on a daily basis. Elon Musk also talked about yesterday about Social Security payments that are going out the door for people who are no longer with us. Unfortunately, I would say that is certainly fraud. There's also a lot of contracts they've identified that, just as a hypothetical example, are $1 million, but only 500,000 went out the door. So where's the rest of that cash? And so that's the thing. Those are the things that Doge is working on every single day. And I would just remind everybody in this room, this is what President Trump campaigned on doing. He's delivering on a promise that 70.
And swear by my name like they taught my people of Israel to swear by Baal. If they do not obey, I will utterly pluck up and destroy that nation. They're all listed in this prophecy written 3,000 years ago by the prophet Asaph. Asaph was a worship leader for King David, but we're also told he was a seer or prophet. 2 Chronicles 29, verse 30. And he, at a time when Israel was, had one, is he's going to, the Arab peoples had, over the diaspora, had gone into the promised land of Israel. It was called Palestine in 135 AD. It was renamed Palestine. Never was really a country. It was always loosely defined borders, depending on whoever controlled the area. But it was called Palestine. And then in 1948, it became Israel. And so he was saying, I'm going to pluck out the evil neighbors from what is now going to be called Israel, put them back into their ancient homelands. And I'm going to pluck the Jews out who were living in some of those Arab countries there, lands, and bring them back into what is now going to be called Israel. So we saw that happen in 1948. Now, what he had to do, the Ottoman Empire had controlled the Middle East from 1517 to 1917. There could be no Arab states or Israel with them having control over that area. So in World War I, they got defeated, the Ottoman Empire, the Turks. And all of a sudden we find in the 20th century, the Arabs starting to get their states back. So for instance, Egypt was 1922, got its statehood. Saudi Arabia and Iraq were 1932. Iran, formerly Persia, was called Iran in 1935. Lebanon, 1943, Jordan and Syria, 1946, and then along comes Israel, 1948. So we see that they're all listed in this prophecy written 3,000 years ago by the prophet Asaph. The Arab states got their statehood. This is a sovereign act of God. He said he would put them back into their lands. I'll continue to read these verses and show you how that plays out.
Yeah, now,
All right, thanks for tuning in, and I hope to see you again next week.
Back to Doe just for a second. Earlier, the subcommittee headed by Chairman Marjorie Taylor Greene, her and her staff discovered $2.7 trillion in improper payments to Medicare, Medicaid, overseas, to people who should not have gotten it. Some of this room might have missed that press conference. Can you elaborate on what the president is thinking at this point?
Well, again, that's another example. There's a very long list of the fraud, waste, and abuse that Doge is identifying on a daily basis. Elon Musk also talked about yesterday about Social Security payments that are going out the door for people who are no longer with us, unfortunately. I would say that is certainly fraud. There's also a lot of contracts they've identified that, just as a hypothetical example, are $1 million, but only 500,000 went out the door. So where's the rest of that cash? And so that's the thing. Those are the things that Doge is working on every single day. And I would just remind everybody in this room, this is what President Trump campaigned on doing. He's delivering on a promise that 70.
All right, today we're going to look at apple seeds and apricot seeds and how they can cure you of cancer.
Roll it, control room. There it is. Dissolving 2. Elon Musk behind the Resolute desk. Our Weijia Jiang asked the President of the United States about that today.
Is Time Magazine still in business? I didn't even know that.
まだタイムマガジンは廃刊じゃないんですか?
Today, there should be different stars, random stars,
in the sky if we are travelling at 650 million miles an hour, which is Mach 870,000. Do you really believe that every year we move through space at 5.5 trillion miles every year, and yet every year the same stars keep turning over our Earth? Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces, year after year after year, and yet none of those constellations distort, change shape, get brighter. There has never been, in recorded history, we have never seen any star get brighter or dimmer or any shape of those constellations, which are still recognizable today as they were thousands of years ago. They never suffer any parallax or distortion.
Polaris has never moved in all of recorded history. Point your camera up at Polaris and do a time lapse and watch God's perfect timepiece spin a button.
Today,
if I could save time in a bottle, the first thing that I'd like to do is to save every day till eternity passes away, just to spend them with you. If I could make days.
And into the frame came something else. So this thing fires a beam of light at the warhead, hits it, goes around like this, fires another beam of light, goes down like this, fires another beam of light, and then flies out the way it came in. Now Major Vansman said to me, "You are never to speak of this again."
Entertainment industry, it's about influence. There is a reason why you see people dressed up as Satan, full-on visuals of Satan, people dressed as Satan, dressed as a demon, got upside-down crosses all on their clothes or pentagrams on their clothes. People think that this stuff is just a game. No, there's a reason why the entertainment industry is doing that, y'all. They know good and doggone well that God exists. They also know that Satan exists. They're just counting on the fact that y'all don't know that. But either way, the things that you take in, that they're feeding you, those things affect you. Whether you realize it in the moment or not, they affect you. That's why they do it. I'm not going to sacrifice the honesty in order to be politically correct. I can say whatever I have to say with respect, but I'm going to say it, and I'm going to say it bluntly.
Do you know what this place is? It's located in the center of the North Pole. And it's the center of the Earth magnetic field, known as the Taurus field. That black thing in the center of the whirlwind is the tallest mountain on Earth, far more taller than the Mount Everest. It's so tall that even it peaks reaching out the clouds. It's the Rupes Nigra, or the Black Rock, also known as Mount Meru. Some people also called it Mount Zion. You wouldn't find this massive mountain existence in mainstream science and media because it's deliberately concealed. Because if the world knew that there is such a huge mountain in the center of the Earth, it would change the course of history. This includes the true nature of our world will be rewritten, and that will undo the globe-shaped Earth theory and the entire timeline of the Earth from the beginning, and they don't want that. Look how the wind stream passes through that mountain. It blocks the wind stream because of its height and size. The Rupes Nigra, or the Black Rock, describes by Mercator as 33 French miles in size, or roughly 40 miles in diameter. It's purportedly explained why all compasses point to this location. The biggest shareholder of all the major companies in the world is Black Rock. It's named after this mountain.
If I could save time in a bottle, the first thing that I'd like to do is to save every day till eternity passes away, just to spend them with you. If I could make days.
And into the frame came something else. So this thing fires a beam of light at the warhead, hits it, goes around like this, fires another beam of light, goes down like this, fires another beam of light, and then flies out the way it came in. Now Major Vansman said to me, "You are never to speak of this again."
Amateur footage from the October 2023 solar eclipse that no one wanted you to see. Did you see that? Some kind of solar explosion through the supposed moon. But how can that be? Isn't this supposed to be the moon in front of the sun? Here's it again. How can this happen if the moon's a supposed solid rock? Imagine the non-pixelated version of this footage. It would be incredible, but obviously wasn't shown to the public. The reason being, it proves the moon does not cause eclipses, and it is in fact something else. The sun we see seems to be projected into our skies from a source behind it, as you can see here. Take a look at this experiment so you can understand a bit better. The sun we see projected in the sky is so bright, it blocks out the lens and we can't see the eclipse. If this is not a lens flare, then what is it? With a more transparent sky, it would make sense that under the right conditions, we could see through the sky and see the source of the sun projection, if we were at the right angle. Here is a slightly more transparent sky for my model. Only when the brightness of the sun is obscured by an eclipse or certain atmospheric conditions can we see the source of the sun that we see. Thanks for watching. If you liked this, don't forget to follow at Mike Priest ARR